Hi everyone, my name is Sundar Iyer and I am the GM of Energy Products and Markets at DiUS, and it's a real pleasure to be with you here today to talk about innovating and commercializing IoT products. I've had the good fortune of having a variety of innovation and commercialization roles over the last 20 years in corporates, in startups, and in scale-ups. And what I've come to realize is that innovation and commercialization are two stages of a race, and that race has got three hurdles. The first hurdle is whether to invest, whether to commit the organizational will and capital to building something new that may potentially cannibalize existing revenues, that may challenge existing processes and routines, that may challenge the existing returns on investment criteria that you have. The second challenge is how to turn that investment into a acquisition, licensing, or development of a new capability, whether that's a new product or service. And the final hurdle, which is usually the highest hurdle, is how to commercialize that innovation. How do you monetize it at scale? Now, if you think about startups and incumbents, they each approach these hurdles in different ways. What do you think? What do you think? Which entity has a greater chance of surmounting hurdle 1, hurdle 2, and hurdle 3? Well, the research and my own experience seems to suggest, so the research coming from the Harvard Business School and Wharton, it seems to suggest that established companies with successful existing product lines tend to struggle on hurdles 1 and 2. They, as I said, have their concerns about cannibalizing existing revenue. They have organizational inertia from the new processes and routines that are necessary to make the most of that new innovation. But they do have the advantage of having the existing capabilities, market access, and relationships to make a innovation successful should they choose to pivot to it. Startups, on the other hand, are unencumbered by hurdles 1 and 2. They are unencumbered by the organizational inertial forces, or they've got nothing really to cannibalize. So they're unencumbered, and so they can approach hurdle 1 and 2 with a lot more momentum. But the startup doesn't have the market access, the relationships, or the manufacturing and service capabilities to surmount hurdle 3 very easily. So they each have relative strengths and advantages. But first, a little bit about DiUS. DiUS is a leader in helping our clients to navigate the new. So new emerging technologies, new emerging business models, and really helping our customers improve how they interact and create products for their customers. The approach that DiUS takes is one of combinatorial innovation, so combining devices. So in the IoT realm, that's very important, of course. Devices at the edge, sensors, using that in the context of broader digital frameworks. So think cloud, mobile apps, digital twins, web portals. Combining that with capabilities in data. DiUS is the first company in this region to gain the machine learning and artificial intelligence competency from Amazon, and has very solid credentials in that data science and AI ML space. And combining the device, the data, and the digital capabilities with a strong competency in design, experience design, and that combination of these four Ds, really underpins innovation in IoT. And DiUS has a long list of IoT clients and has garnered many IoT awards for its work in the space. And importantly, I'd also add that DiUS has commercialized and incubated three startups of its own, three product startups of its own, and that are now in the process of being scaled up. And this has led to also a strong focus on hurdle 3, which is the commercialization hurdle. And I'll speak a bit more about that. So the 4 Ds that I mentioned before, design, data, device, and digital, all come together to help drive simplification in the case of the power sensor. By doing our user research and running trials, we discovered the expectations and the needs and the values of different segments of the market. And really the heart of the problem was that while electricity is a major expense for most households, there is no visibility of what's going on. Even for those who invested thousands of dollars in a solar system, they don't really know what's going on. And 90% of systems are unmonitored, solar systems are unmonitored. And when you don't have visibility, there's no empowerment. And really that was the crux of what we found, that people want to be empowered. They want to be empowered with data, but more than data, they want to be empowered with insights to tell them what's going on. It's also quite interesting that most people have actually given up because of the complexity of energy, and they don't think about energy as much as, say, Netflix or something else that they spend a lot less money on. And the reason for that is due to that complexity we understand. And it's actually a little bit of a dichotomy because, many people are interested in climate change, but even when they are interested in climate change, they don't have the visibility of their own energy and carbon footprint, so they don't really know what to do about it. And so all of these, created the space for or an opportunity for us to address this with a solution. And we did that through a number of ways. One was to get some collaborative thinking going with early adopters and internal cohorts, as well as customer-friendly cohorts, friendly customer cohorts. And we introduced some lightweight processes agile processes to be able to quickly capture these insights. Then through 2-week design sprints, create new solutions or new features or refined features that we can then test with these friendlies and with these cohorts to understand what works well. And as a result, we've also learned to ask better questions instead of asking what insights or rather what data would be useful to them. We ask questions like what insights would be meaningful and actionable, and so this is this is helping us to evolve the product further. So here's how the power sensor looks like in a home environment. There's no electrician required, no disruption of supply, no tools, no wiring. On the top left there, you can see the users using the LED lights on the side of the device to determine where the optimal place to place the power sensor is. On the bottom left, they're using the strap. They've used the strap to attach the power sensor to the AC output of around the conduit of the AC output of the inverter. And on the right-hand side, you can see that they've velcroed on the power sensor to the left-hand side of the emitter to determine whole of site consumption. They could also use the power sensor around a particular appliance to do appliance level monitoring as well. Here's a more technical view, and on the left-hand side here, folks begin the installation by installing a plug. They pair that plug with the sensor. That sensor, as I said before, can go on the AC output of the inverter, or it could go on a fuse box or on the meter for consumption generation, or it can go around particular appliances. So that way we cover off home consumption, whole site consumption, appliance level, as well as solar generation. Once that's installed, the data is sent from the sensor over long-range Bluetooth to the plug. The plug uses Wi-Fi to communicate that back to the cloud. The data stored in the cloud can be pulled down into a provider portal for those who want to see the status of their deployments across multiple sites, and to tabulate, chart, or map that the energy consumption. The individual user or end user can also pull that data into in near real time at 30-second intervals. They can see the energy that they're consuming. So just to summarize there, instead of seeing energy consumed after a month or 3 or 6 or 9 months, they're now seeing it every 30 seconds. And so that gives them the opportunity to change their habits, determine any anomalies, very high levels of usage, for example, and it provides them that insight to change habits or change appliances, or even look at comparing different retail plans in a more effective way. So I want to move on to the commercialization dimension, commercialization stage of the race. And here we've had a number of key learnings. I'd summarize those in terms of, if you want to drive a good commercialization strategy, you need a good car. And that car is an acronym that stands for capability, access, and relationships. So the capabilities you need are end-to-end, from manufacturing all the way through to the point of service, helping your customers where they have a problem. The access is market access, and this is all about working with partners. Having an IoT is very much an ecosystem play, working with value-added resellers, and even tapping into government incentives that, in the space of energy, for example, there's incentives there for carbon abatement programs and energy efficiency, which plays into the proposition of the power sensor, and very importantly, having strong relationships with customers, suppliers, and investors. If you put the innovation and the commercialization pieces together for the power sensor, on the innovation side, it's really about making it simple. In fact, we believe it's the most simple way to see energy used and energy generated. On the commercialization side, we also want to make it simple. In fact, we want to make it easy to sell, including for our resellers, to making it easy for them to sell, and we want to make it easy for end users to buy by tapping into the commercialization assets, the complementary commercialization assets, the capabilities, the access, market access, and the relationships. The first complementary commercialization asset I'd like to cover is capability, and that really is a question of who can commit. Which of your partners can commit to you? The partners can extend from your manufacturing partners all the way through to your service partners. Let me spend a little bit of time on this because I think it's quite important. COVID has taught us that supply chain resiliency is as important, if not more important, than unit costs. So, this is something for all of us to consider. The power sensor is manufactured overseas, but the hardware, the firmware, the software was all designed here in Australia, designed and coded here in Australia. The question that we have is, whether consumers will actually pay more for if it was manufactured locally. Would they pay a premium for it? The other question is would government, whether state or federal, would they create more incentives for local manufacture of innovative products? The other question is, will Australian manufacturing partners co-invest in promising innovations and provide a higher volume unit pricing for smaller batches? I think there's an opportunity for manufacturers to be more strategic and go beyond an order-taking paradigm. And if you're one of those manufacturers, we'd love to talk to you. Similarly, support partners can upskill and go beyond a level 1 service desk and further up the value chain from reactive to proactive support. The second complementary commercialization asset that I'd like you to consider is market access. And here it really boils down to a question of, who shares the same drivers, motivations, and incentives as you. It's often the case that, you might have, different options as to which channel you're going to use to take your product to market. In the case of the power sensor, we had energy retailers, there were solar providers, there were virtual power plant providers, there were energy efficiency advisors, home automation providers, appliance retailers. So there was quite a broad list. One dimension of that is to pick, who could actually give you a quick win, to create some case studies that establish your credibility in that market. The other dimension of that is to really work with different segments or different channel partners because they all have different levels of expertise, and leveraging their expertise helps you understand the market a whole lot better to gain deeper insights. And you can also share your own insights with them and work out how you can both address that market segment better together. So, for example, CRM software providers that I've spoken to are very interested in the power sensor because it helps them build a richer customer profile of that end user, and together we can address the energy retailer segment a whole lot better that way. Also, very key to this is understanding how your propositions and their propositions can add up to create even stronger propositions. And so, finding out what their unique selling points are, adding it to your unique selling points, and working out what makes sense, what makes better sense in terms of working together. So I think key to this is really getting your product out of the lab quickly and getting it into the hands of multiple parties, and working out what their interests are, what incents them, and what kinds of aspects of that product would support both your proposition as well as their proposition, and how you can make 1 and 1 equal more than 2. The third aspect here is about who is willing to invest with you and actually invest in you, or in your product, that is. And investments take various forms. So there's time. Having cohorts, like I mentioned before, provides you a group of people who are willing to invest their time to try your product out and give you honest feedback. And you might start with your own employees. So, for example, we've got an internal cohort going of staff and friends and family to try out the device and try out the solution and give us feedback. The other aspect is to have a broad-ranging cohort, so that way you can try. We try the product in a variety of different electrical contexts and with both technical as well as non-technical people, so that way we can appeal to a larger cross-section of people when we hit the mainstream. I'd also say that work with your suppliers and ask them to invest their time in understanding what makes your product successful, and that way you can help shape their roadmaps, which in turn improves the price performance equation of your product. and ultimately, you've got an interest in doing so because it is your brand. And of course, there's the capital side of investment, and this is about working with not just anyone who can write you a check, but with companies or with investors that provide more than just capital, but what I'd call strategic capital, so they can help open doors to get your product into more hands. So to summarize, I've covered three main points in this talk. The first is that emerging tech is about innovation and commercialization. And put together, that race has got three hurdles. There's the hurdle of investment, there's the hurdle of converting that investment into a product, and the third and highest hurdle of commercialization. The second point is that innovation, particularly in the IoT space, involves combining four elements: the device, the data that the device produces, design capabilities, so that what you're doing is meets the needs, expectations, and values of your customers or end users, and of course digital competencies such as cloud, data science, web portals, and digital twins, etc. And the third aspect, which I covered, is the importance of commercialization, tapping into capabilities, manufacturing and service capabilities, tapping into those that can offer you complementary products and propositions to help you improve market access. And finally, but certainly not least, is the importance of relationships with your customers, your suppliers, and your investors. I hope you found this useful, and I'd like to thank you. If you do have any feedback or have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out to me on my email address there below. Thank you for this opportunity.